I have been living with my dad and new stepmom, who's trying to erase all photos of my late mom from our house. I'm using my friend's account because I don't want this traced back to me in case anyone I know sees this. My mom passed away from cancer 2 years ago after fighting it for a long time. It was just me and my dad left in our house afterward. Mom was a wildlife photographer. She had photos published in National Geographic. Our house has always been filled with her photos, both family pictures and her professional work with landscapes and wildlife. These photos aren't just decorations, they're her legacy and basically all I have left of her. About 6 months ago, my dad started dating this woman named Vanessa. I was barely wrapping my head around him dating when suddenly they decided to get married after only 3 months of knowing each other. Still can't believe he did this. They had this small ceremony that honestly happened way too fast for me to process. Like, one day she's dad's new girlfriend, and the next she's your new stepmom. A week later, she moved into our house and immediately started making changes to freshen the place up and make it feel like her home too. Her exact words. At first it was just rearranging furniture and buying new throw pillows, which whatever, I could live with that. But things took a serious turn yesterday. I came home from school and found Vanessa taking down several of my mom's photographs from our living room walls. She already had a stack removed and placed on the coffee table. I just stood there for a moment, trying to process what I was seeing. I asked her what she was doing, trying to keep my voice steady, even though I was freaking out inside. She turned to me with this fake sympathetic look and said she couldn't feel comfortable making this her home when another woman's face is watching from every wall, and suggested they should all be put away now that we've moved on. We haven't moved on. She wasn't even here when my mom was alive. I stood there, frozen, watching as she casually handled the framed photograph of my mom standing next to her most famous work, this misty mountain landscape that had been in National Geographic. The way she was holding it made me feel physically sick. She must have noticed my expression because she quickly added not to look so worried, that they wouldn't throw the photos away, just put them somewhere more appropriate, like storage or maybe just a couple in my room. My dad arrived home during this conversation. Instead of defending the photograph's place in our home like I expected him to, he suggested a compromise where we keep a few select photos out and the rest go to storage. I couldn't believe he was taking her side. This is our home, not hers. She just got here. My dad saw how upset I was getting and added that I could take any photos I wanted to keep in my room before they boxed up the rest, telling me to pick your favorites. That evening, they went out for dinner, probably to avoid dealing with me, Taba, and I spent the entire time they were gone carefully removing every single photograph of my mom from the house. There were over 40 framed pictures in total. I took them all to my bedroom and spent hours arranging them on my walls, desk, and shelves. By the time I was done, almost every inch of wall space had one of her photos. It was excessive, I admit that, but it felt like the only way to protect her memory. And truthfully, I was pretty angry too. When they got home and saw what I'd done, Vanessa was pissed. She called it a deliberate insult and said it was not what your father meant. I asked why it was any of her fucking business what I did with my mother's photos, since my dad specifically said I could take any I wanted to keep. My dad tried to calm the situation down, suggesting that perhaps I could keep some in my room but return a few to storage, claiming that having all of them in my room seemed excessive and not healthy. Real nice coming from a grief counselor who remarried 6 months after meeting someone new, but whatever. I refused and pointed out that he specifically said I could take any photos I want, and I want all of them. I told them that if they're just going to be stored away, they might as well be where someone who actually cares about them can see them. Later that night, I overheard Vanessa telling my dad that I was being disrespectful and needed to move on properly. She had this tone that made me suspicious, and now I'm worried she actually planned to throw the photos away once they were out of sight. I'm not being paranoid. The way she handled them earlier wasn't careful at all. It's been a really tense few days since then. Vanessa barely speaks to me except to make comments about my unhealthy attachment and how living in the past isn't going to bring her back. My dad keeps getting caught in the middle, telling me privately he understands while agreeing with Vanessa in front of her. Absolute spineless behavior, but I didn't say that. The worst part is, I'm working on this photography scholarship application for art school, inspired by my mom's work, and the deadline is in 3 weeks. Photography is the one thing that makes me feel connected to her, and I've been learning using her old equipment. My dad keeps reminding me that Vanessa's financial support will be important for college expenses, basically implying I should just give in to keep the peace. Mom's photos aren't just sentimental, they're reference material for my own work. I study her techniques and compositions. They also represent countless stories she told me about her adventures capturing these images. Each one has a memory attached, like the osprey photo she took while we were camping when I was 10, or the sunset over the lake from our last family vacation before she got sick. Edit. To clarify, my mom specifically left me all her photography equipment in her will, including several professional cameras and lenses worth thousands of dollars. Vanessa hasn't tried to touch those yet, but considering how she's acting about the photos, I'm getting worried about that equipment too. It's stored in my closet for now. The atmosphere at home is getting worse every day. Yesterday, Vanessa accidentally knocked one of Mom's framed photos off my desk when she came in to collect laundry, even though the basket wasn't anywhere near my desk. The glass cracked, and she just said, "Oops," before walking out. I spent an hour carefully removing glass shards and replacing the frame. My dad seems torn between supporting me and pleasing his new wife. When I tried talking to him alone, he got this defeated look and said, "We all need to adjust to our new family dynamic." He's a literal grief counselor, but can't see what's happening in his own home. I'm considering contacting my mom's old photography colleague, Maria, to see if she can store some of the more valuable or irreplaceable photos until I figure out a more permanent solution. I shouldn't have to hide my mom's memory, but I also don't trust Vanessa to respect these important parts of my life. Should I confront them directly about this continuing issue or find somewhere else to store the photos safely? I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle in my own home, and I'm genuinely confused about the best approach. Now for the first update. Holy crap, I didn't expect my post to blow up like this. Rip my inbox, seriously. First off, thank you all for the advice and support. I've been reading everything, even though I couldn't respond to everyone. It's been a really tense week since I moved all my mom's photos into my room. The atmosphere at home feels extremely strained. Vanessa barely speaks to me directly anymore, but when she does, it's usually some comment about living in the past, or how unhealthy my attachment to my mom's memory is. My dad is being absolutely spineless about the whole situation. When we're alone, he'll tell me he understands why the photos are important to me and how he misses Mom too. But the second Vanessa enters the room, he starts agreeing with her that some changes are necessary for healing. The timing of all this drama couldn't be worse. I'm working on this photography scholarship application for art school that's due in 3 weeks, and I'm stressed enough about that without all this additional family tension. Photography is the one thing that makes me feel connected to Mom, and I've been using her techniques as inspiration for my portfolio. Several commenters asked about my photography. Yes, I mainly focus on nature, wildlife, but with my own style. Yesterday, Dad pulled me aside after dinner to remind me that Vanessa's financial support will be really important for my college expenses not covered by scholarships. The implication was crystal clear: play nice with Stepmommy Dearest or risk my college fund. Real nice. Dad. I didn't say this to him, but I was thinking it loudly. Today, things went from bad to worse. I had a class canceled unexpectedly, so I came home earlier than usual. As I was heading upstairs to my room to work on my portfolio, I heard movement inside. I quietly pushed my door open and found Vanessa reaching for some of the photo frames on my highest shelf. I stopped watching as she carefully removed a photo of my mom from its frame and slipped it into a folder she was holding. Then, she put the frame back on the shelf. Who does she think she's fooling? "What are you doing?" I asked loudly. She stepped down. The look on her face when she saw me, I wish I had a picture of that to frame. "Oh, you startled me," she said, quickly stepping down. "I was just tidying up a bit. These frames look dusty." I didn't believe her for a second. I walked over and grabbed the folder from her hands before she could stop me. Inside were several photos of my mom already removed from their frames. The family vacation photo from Maine, Mom with her first major photography award, her and Dad on their anniversary. "What the hell? These are my photos. You have no right to touch them," I said, trying to keep my voice somewhat steady. That's when her whole demeanor changed. She snapped. It's not normal for a teenage boy to have a shrine to his mommy in his bedroom. I'm trying to help you move on. I'm not proud of how loudly I shouted that she had absolutely no right to touch my mother's things. She fired back that this was her house too now, and that she was tired of being made to feel like the wicked stepmother for trying to create a healthy environment. The argument kept escalating until she said something that pushed me over the edge. She had the nerve to claim my mom wouldn't want me to be stuck in grief. I lost it at that point. I don't even remember exactly what I said, but I was screaming at her to never presume to know what my mother would want. Of course, that's when my dad walked in. He had come home early too, just my luck. Instead of addressing the fact that his wife was stealing my property, he immediately focused on my disrespectful tone toward Vanessa. When I tried explaining that I caught her removing photos from their frames, Vanessa reacted emotionally. Oscar-worthy performance, truly. I was only trying to create digital backups of the photos as a surprise gift, she told my dad. I wanted to make sure they were preserved properly. I was going to put them back when I was done. The absolute worst part? My dad believed her. Despite the obvious lie, he actually looked at me like I was overreacting. Son, Vanessa was trying to do something thoughtful, he said. I think you owe her an apology. I didn't apologize. I just stood there, holding the folder with my mom's photos, feeling completely betrayed by my own father. It was crystal clear in that moment that I couldn't trust either of them to respect what matters to me. After they both left my room, I sat on my bed for a long time just staring at the photos. Some of you suggested in comments that I find somewhere else to store the most important ones, and you were absolutely right. Why didn't I think of this sooner? That night, I carefully went through all the photos and selected the most irreplaceable ones. Mom's award-winning shots, the family photos that mean the most to me, and anything I need for reference for my scholarship application. I also grabbed the external hard drives that contain her entire professional portfolio that she left me. I packed everything carefully in my school backpack. I'm going to contact Maria tomorrow. She always loved Mom and was really supportive after she passed. I'm sure she'll keep everything safe until I figure out a more permanent solution. To answer some common questions from the comments. 1. Yes, I have copies of my mom's will that specifically leaves me her photography equipment and portfolio. 2. No, I don't have any other relatives nearby I could stay with. 3. Yes, I've considered talking to my school counselor, but I'm worried about making things worse if CPS gets involved since I'm already 17. I hate that it's come to this, sneaking around and hiding my mother's photographs. But after catching Vanessa today, I realize I can't trust her at all. The way she switched from being sweet to angry when confronted showed her true colors. I'll update again after I talk to Maria and figure out what to do about the scholarship application. Thank you all for making me feel less crazy about wanting to protect these memories. Your comments really help me realize I'm not overreacting or stuck in grief like they keep suggesting. Now for the second update. Update 2. Well, it's been 2 weeks since my last post about the Vanessa situation. Thank you all for your support and advice. It truly helped. I've been putting off this update because things have gotten even more tense at home, but I need to get this off my chest before I completely lose it. First, the good news. Maria was absolutely amazing when I reached out to her. I called her the morning after I caught Vanessa stealing my photos, and she immediately offered to meet me. When I showed her the photos and explained what was happening, she was horrified. She not only agreed to keep Mom's most important photographs and hard drives safe at her studio, but she also gave me a key so I could visit them whenever I wanted. After securing the irreplaceable items with Maria, I felt a little better, but I was still worried about the remaining photos in my room. I'm not usually the confrontational type, but reading your messages gave me the courage to stand up for myself. I went to a hardware store after school and bought a doorknob with a lock for my bedroom door. When Dad saw me installing it, he wasn't happy at all. We had a tense conversation where he kept saying, "This isn't necessary, and we're a family who trusts each other." I finally snapped and told him that if he wouldn't protect Mom's memory and my privacy, I'd have to do it myself. Then, I mentioned that Grandma and Grandpa had always said I could live with them if things got difficult here. That got his attention. He reluctantly agreed to the lock, though he made me promise to only use it when I wasn't home. The scholarship application deadline is in just a few days, and I've been working to finish my portfolio. Photography is the only thing keeping me sane right now. Using mom's techniques in my work makes me feel like she's still teaching me, if that makes sense. The application requires a personal statement too, and I've been trying to find the right words to explain how my mom inspired my love for photography without sounding like I'm using her death for sympathy points. Something happened yesterday. I was sitting at the dining room table working on my application when I overheard Dad and Vanessa arguing in the kitchen. They didn't know I was home, and they were loud. At first, I was trying to ignore them, but then I heard Vanessa say something about carrying dead weight. From what I could piece together, Vanessa has been struggling financially since losing her job 6 months ago, around when she started dating my dad. Dad was saying he would give her time to find a position, and she was complaining about the pressure of bills. Then she said, "I can't keep living in a museum to your dead wife." Dad tried to defend himself, saying he was trying to balance everyone's needs, but she wasn't having it. That's when she dropped the ultimatum. She said either the remaining photos in my room needed to be dealt with, or she was reconsidering this whole arrangement. She said she couldn't keep living as second place to a ghost. The part that really freaked me out was when she mentioned potentially selling the house to make a clean start somewhere else. This is my home, the only place I have left with memories of Mom. The idea of losing it made me feel upset. Dad sounded panicked at that suggestion and quickly promised to talk to me again about the photos. I gathered my stuff and went to my room, locking the door behind me. I sat on my bed for a long time, processing everything I'd heard. The fact that Vanessa might have financial motives behind this whole marriage made sense. Later that evening, Dad knocked on my door, wanting to have a serious talk. He tried to explain that Vanessa was feeling insecure in the house. He asked if I would consider storing just some of the remaining photos as a gesture of goodwill. When I refused, his whole demeanor changed. He reminded me that as a minor, I don't have final say over what happens in the house. He used the phrase, "sacrifices need to be made by everyone in a blended family." That's when I said something I probably shouldn't have, but I couldn't help it. I asked him how, as a literal grief counselor, he could justify rushing into a new marriage and trying to erase Mom's memory from our home. I asked what he would tell clients in my situation. He got defensive, accusing me of weaponizing his profession against him. He claimed his relationship with Vanessa was different because he had already processed his grief before meeting her. The conversation ended with him giving me his own ultimatum. Either I find a compromise with Vanessa about the photos, or they'll make decisions without my input while I'm at school tomorrow. He threatened to come into my room while I was gone, despite the new lock. As soon as he left, I texted Maria in a panic, asking if I could bring the remaining photos to her studio before school tomorrow. She immediately agreed and even offered to help me transport everything. I stayed up until 3 a.m., making digital copies of all the remaining photos just in case. Then I packed everything in boxes, set my alarm for 5:30 a.m., and tried to get some sleep. I managed to get everything out of the house before Dad or Vanessa woke up this morning. Maria met me with coffee and helped me carry everything into her studio storage room. She even drove me to school afterwards so I wouldn't be late. The strange thing is, I felt both relieved and sad seeing all Mom's photos in boxes at Maria's studio. They should be on our walls, in our home, not hidden away, because my stepmom is uncomfortable with my dad's past and is eyeing our house to sell. I'm now sitting in the school library during lunch, trying to figure out what to do next. Dad has texted me 3 times asking where I am and if we can talk things through tonight. I haven't responded yet because I honestly don't know what to say. I've got the scholarship application almost complete. I'm staying at school late today to finish it in the computer lab, and then I'll probably go to Maria's afterward to avoid going home for as long as possible. The strangest part is that I'm managing to channel all this stress and anger into my photography, and I think my portfolio is the best work I've ever done. Mom would be proud, I think. I don't know what's waiting for me when I finally go home tonight. I'm terrified that this is just the beginning of them trying to erase Mom completely from our lives. I'll update again after I submit my application and figure out what to do about this mess with Dad and Vanessa. Thanks for listening to me vent. Sometimes it feels like you internet strangers understand me better than my own family does right now. Now for the final update. Final update to the Stepmom versus Mom's Photos saga. First, I want to sincerely thank everyone who's been following along and offering advice through this situation. You all kept me sane when I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. It's been just over a week since my last post. I successfully submitted my photography scholarship application, and Maria has been a lifesaver through all of this. After moving all the remaining photos to her studio that morning, I spent the next couple days avoiding home as much as possible. I'd leave for school early, stay late in the computer lab, then head to Maria's studio to work on my portfolio. By the time I got home each night, I'd go straight to my room and lock the door. Dad kept texting me, asking to talk things through and find a compromise, but I mostly ignored him. Vanessa's messages got increasingly snippy, calling me disrespectful and immature. I know ignoring them wasn't the most mature response, but honestly, I needed space to focus on finishing my application without another blow-up. The night after I submitted my application, I finally responded to Dad's texts and told him I'd be home for dinner. I figured I could handle whatever lecture was coming now that my application was safely submitted. I even felt a little proud of myself for how I'd handled everything, if I'm being honest. When I got home that evening, the house was quiet. No sign of Dad or Vanessa downstairs. I headed up to my room to drop off my backpack before dinner, and that's when things went wrong. My bedroom door was wide open. The lock was gone, not just unlocked, but the doorknob had been replaced with a regular one without a lock. But that wasn't even the worst part. My entire room had been transformed. The walls were now a pale gray. All my posters were gone. My bedding was replaced with some generic beige comforter I'd never seen, and my desk had been rearranged. Near the door were 3 large trash bags. When I looked inside, I found all of my mother's empty photo frames. The trash bags also contained some of my old band posters, school projects, and other childish decorations that had apparently been deemed unnecessary. I stood there in complete shock, trying to process what I was seeing when I heard Vanessa's voice behind me. "Do you like it?" I thought a fresh start would help you move forward. She was smiling. My brain was struggling to catch up. "Where's all my stuff? And what happened to my door lock?" She waved her hand dismissively. "We had to remove the lock for the renovation. As for your things, I had to make space. Some things are in storage, and I donated the items that seemed childish or unnecessary. You're almost an adult now. Your room should reflect that." That's when I realized something even more important might be missing. I rushed to my closet and opened it quickly. The large black case containing all of my mom's camera equipment, her professional cameras, specialty lenses, filters, and gear she'd specifically left to me in her will, was gone. "Where's my mom's camera equipment?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but could feel it rising with panic. Vanessa hesitated. "I'm not sure what you're talking about. The black case is in my closet. Mom's cameras and lenses. Where are they?" "Oh, those. I temporarily moved them to a storage unit. You barely used them, and they were unused." I became suspicious. This wasn't just about freshening up the house anymore. I pushed past her and went downstairs to where her laptop was sitting open on the dining room table. She followed me, her voice getting higher and more nervous. "What are you doing? That's my personal computer." I ignored her and started clicking through her open browser tabs. And there it was, her eBay account with active listings. One of them showed my mother's camera bag in the background of a photo of something else she was selling. The listing title was Professional Photography Equipment, Canon EOS 5D Mark IV with L-series lenses. That was my mom's primary camera, the one she used for her National Geographic shoots, the one she taught me to use before she got sick. I turned to face Vanessa. "You're selling my mom's equipment? That's my inheritance. You have no right." For the first time, Vanessa showed her true colors. "I'm sick of competing with a dead woman. Do you have any idea how it feels to live in this house? Everything is always about her. Besides, some of that equipment is worth good money that could help with expenses around here." "You mean your expenses?" I shot back. "Since you've been unemployed for 6 months?" But she recovered quickly. "Well, someone needs to generate income now that I'm supporting both of you. That photography equipment is unused anyway. At least this way it serves a purpose." That's when the front door opened and Dad walked in carrying groceries. He took in the scene, me standing over Vanessa's laptop, both of us shouting. "What's going on here?" he asked, setting down the bags. Before Vanessa could spin some story, I turned the laptop toward him. "She's selling Mom's camera equipment. The The stuff Mom specifically left to me in her will. She's already listed it online. He looked at the screen, then at Vanessa, then back at the screen. Is this true? Vanessa's entire demeanor changed instantly. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The mortgage payments, the utilities, the credit card bills. We need money, and there's thousands of dollars worth of equipment just sitting unused in a teenager's closet, Dad declared. That equipment legally belongs to my son. It was specified in my late wife's will. You had no right to take it, much less try to sell it. What happened next was unexpected. Vanessa completely broke down. Between sobs, the truth came out. She wasn't just unemployed, she was deeply in debt. Tens of thousands of dollars in debt that she'd hidden from Dad before they got married. She'd been counting on selling our house and clearing out unnecessary items to solve her financial problems. Dad just stood there helplessly. When Vanessa finally ran out of steam, he took a deep breath and said something I never thought I'd hear. I think you should leave until we can figure out next steps. Vanessa looked shocked. You're choosing him over me after everything I've done for this family. Dad glanced at me, then back at her. I'm choosing to protect my son and honor my late wife's wishes, something I should have been doing all along. We can discuss our marriage later, but right now I need you to go. She stormed upstairs and began throwing things into a suitcase, all while loudly blaming me for ruining everything. Dad and I stood awkwardly in the kitchen, not really looking at each other. I didn't know what to say, and apparently neither did he. After Vanessa left, Dad asked to see the eBay listings. He quietly canceled them all, then called the storage facility where she'd taken the equipment. Turns out, she'd rented the unit in her name only, but Dad convinced the manager to let us access it since the property inside belonged to me. We drove there in silence. The unit contained not just Mom's camera equipment, but boxes of other things from our house that Vanessa had apparently been planning to sell. Dad helped me load everything important into his car, and we went home. That night, he knocked on my door, which still didn't have a lock, and awkwardly asked if we could talk. He apologized for not seeing what Vanessa was doing, for rushing into the marriage, and for not standing up for me sooner. He admitted he'd been so focused on moving forward that he hadn't considered what that meant for me and my connection to Mom. The next day, Maria helped me bring back all of Mom's photos. Dad actually helped us hang some of them back up in the living room. It was the first time in months that the house felt a little bit like home again. It's been a few days now, and things are still weird between Dad and me, but we're talking more than we have since Mom died. He's contacted a lawyer about the marriage because getting married after only knowing someone for 3 months is not advisable. Vanessa has been blowing up his phone with alternating apologies and threats, but he's standing firm on keeping her out of the house for now. As for me, I'm trying to focus on school and waiting to hear back about the scholarship. Maria has offered me a part-time job at her studio, which would be an amazing experience if I get into the photography program. Edit. Just wanted to add, I got a call this morning from the scholarship committee. They want to interview me next week. They were really impressed with my portfolio and personal statement, which ended up being about how photography helped me maintain a connection to my mom after she passed. I'm nervous, but excited. Also, Dad and I are going to start grief counseling together next week. Turns out he wasn't as over Mom's death as he claimed to be with Vanessa. Who would have thought? What started as me simply trying to protect my mom's photos turned into a complete upheaval of our lives. But honestly, I think it needed to happen. I'm finally feeling like I can breathe again in my own home, and Dad seems to be coming back to his senses. Thank you all for being my support system through this ordeal. Your advice literally saved my mom's legacy.